Hey everyone. Today we're going to be I have a top question which is the a quote that I've always heard that I've really taken in is the quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions you ask. Today we're actually exploring the topic of how the quality of your health is actually dictated by the quality of the questions you or your doctors are asking or not asking about your health in this case. So, without further ado, we're going to dig right in. Here we go, everybody. Hey, everybody. I'm Maggie UMD. I am a functional and holistic medicine physician, actively in practice for the last 27 plus years. And today we're coming in hot and we're coming in fall right now. And we are full blown into pumpkin spice season, or is it apple cinnamon? So, one of the things I want to check in with you as all of you guys are starting to come in is I actually want to start with a poll before we jump in with some of these critical questions. Here's a question that I was told was as controversial as whether there should be pineapple on a pizza or not. And the question is, are you on team pumpkin spice or are you on team apple cinnamon? Type it in chat right now, everybody that's watching as you guys are coming in. I'm curious. Um, I'm curious. And in honor of that, I'm having actually apple cinnamon tea, and I'm enjoying it. I am both. I'm thinking about this, and I think I'm both apple cinnamon and team pumpkin spice. But I would love to know in the comments as you guys are coming in whether you are team pumpkin spice or apple cinnamon, and what's your favorite recipe if you're pumpkin or if you're team apple. I would love to know. You could even do it with an emoji. If you could answer with an emoji, that'd be helpful. I would love to know what recipe, what item you love that is in that particular flavor. Inquiry minds want to know. I see apple. You love pineapple on pizza. Okay. Well, thank you. Lori, you love apple cinnamon 100%. Lori, what's your favorite apple cinnamon recipe? I would love to know. For me, I love apple pie. I cannot lie. I make the best gluten-free apple pie. Last year, right around this time, I actually did a live where I made my gluten-free pumpkin pie. From what I remember, it was pumpkin pie that I made. Apple cinnamon, yes, I love, and I love apple pie, homemade apple pie. I love it. Troy said that as well. I love it, homemade apple pie. All right, today, as we're digging in, thank you for voting and keep voting, everybody. One of the things that I'm talking about today is that the quality of your life is dictated by the quality of the questions you ask. And I see that happening in health. And health is a great example of this more than ever and in so many ways. I think about when I see, for example, I look at things very differently. So I remember the movie Sixth Sense. Do you guys remember that? And in spirit of Halloween, Sixth Sense, the movie. In the movie, the boy he says, I see dead people, right? He sees things that other people don't see, which is in walking in plain sight for him. They're real, they're there, but only he can see something like that, right? He has a unique ability. And that's a special, unique advantage and unique ability. And because he's able to see that, he actually is able to think about problems. He's able to solve things in different ways. He's able to understand situations very differently. That is exactly what I do with health in the sense where I see patterns. They're hidden, and they're as hidden as, let's say, a spirit would be. I see patterns everywhere. I see when someone presents a medical situation for me or a question, I see patterns and I am filled with questions, a lot of them. And that's what I have the most fun doing. And this week I was working with clients and in speaking to a lot of people, different people, even very symptoms that they represent. The first thing I do is I don't just say, aha, there's a complaint and here's the answer, here's the prescription. I actually is like, I'm filled with more questions than answers. Let me ask these questions. And when I ask those questions, when no matter what the symptom or situation is, when I think about what the special questions are that illuminates these patterns, it opens up pathways and solutions that they have never seen, heard, or discovered, or even thought about. And that's my superpower, right? So I see patterns and I love asking questions. So That being said, I want you guys to think about your very own health conditions right now and think about that and think about what are some of the major health obstacles you have, because we're talking about chronic health problems like chronic fatigue syndrome, brain fog, hormone chaos, autoimmune disease, neuropathy, pain, later onset ADD, anxiety, depression, you name it, right? When you think about these questions, these seemingly sometimes insurmountable chronic health symptoms, or really debilitating type symptoms, what are the questions that you do get asked when you go see your multitude of primary care providers and specialists? What are they asking? Okay. And most importantly, put the symptoms in chat, or the question that you have in chat that you think. Do you think that there are questions and patterns that might be missing to the whole approach of that situation? That's what we're going to talk about today, is what I see as some really critically missed questions that aren't being asked. And I also feel that doctors, and when you go into a doctor's visit, are asking the wrong questions. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. That being said, let's take a look. Diana, you love both pumpkin spice and apple. I love it. And Troy's like, I want to see what you see. I can't wait. We're going to be doing some of that on this call. So, like, what I would love is if you guys want to see what I see when I see your symptoms, or a little bit about your history, throw it in the chat. We're collecting them. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to start seeing you what I see when I start seeing some of these symptoms that you have. So throw it at me. Come at me is what I would say. Yeah, gluten-free apple pie. Troy, you want the recipe? Apple fritters, caramel apple anything, Kate says. Okay, so I'm seeing that we have right now running neck and neck. We have an even split between pumpkin spice and apple cinnamon right now. So please vote. Now, let's think about this for a second. One of the things that I want to point out is that I had a conversation with somebody about when you go into all these doctor's office or specialist office, what do you think is happening? Okay. And I want to tell you behind the scenes what I know is happening. Okay. What you think is happening and what is actually happening behind the scenes. There's a total fundamentally different perspective and framework that you're coming in with that actually is working against you. So think about this. When you're going into your doctor's office, you are going in with, let's say you have chronic fatigue, or maybe use heartburn as an example. You go in with a heartburn and you think heartburn, but you also have some neuropathy, chronic pain, some insomnia, some anxiety, and some weight gain, right? You're going, would be a typical primary care visit for a lot of us going in. When you go in, you think, I'm going to go in and I'm going to have some intelligent conversation around this. I'm going to have work on solutions. They're going to be asking me a ton about history. They're going to be asking me a lot of different types of questions, figure out what's going on, what's causing this problem, what's wrong, and then how are they going to fix it, right? So you have an expectation or a hope that this is what it's going to be. On the other side of it, from a healthcare delivery, again, I'm 27 years actively in practice, and my first 11 years was straight family medicine physician before I came down with my own mystery illnesses, right? I came down with early menopause at the age of 36 and fibromyalgia. And then with the birth of each of my children, I came down with more and more mystery diagnoses and symptoms that people couldn't solve, like chronic fatigue, chronic pain, TMJ, carpal tunnel. Okay. And later I was able to diagnose and figure out I had my own autoimmune issues, right? And early menopause, which really wasn't early menopause. So I understand that this is what the perspective people coming in as is, I'm going to come in to solve this problem. From a doctor's and a medical assistant and a primary care clinic point of view, I want to tell you what it really is. For us, really importantly, as a medical assistant or as someone who's booking the appointment and then your medical assistant, your job is to get as clear as possible on what the one or two maximum, maybe the third symptom is. It's called a chief complaint. So in the moment that if you didn't state that in your visit when you first came in, the medical assistant is going to basically, their job is to figure out what is this person's chief complaint, 1, 2, or 3. At most 1 or 2, to be honest, if they're working with their doctor, because the doctor's on, basically we got time constraints here. And the moment that a chief complaint is put in, that is the question. That really is just the question. And what it is begins a whole warehouse sorting thing that you don't even realize is that, let's say your chief complaint is heartburn. The moment that your chief complaint is heartburn, there's a whole algorithm of the exact menu of items that you're going to be asked about couple questions, and then there's a menu of exactly what is the pathway with which the primary care provider sorter can actually sort you into. Now, let's think about what's on the menu. You think you're going in to solve these complex health problems. They have time for your heartburn, okay? And really, what is on the menu, there's only really three choices. Number one, a prescription. Are you going to get prescribed Prilosec or not? Number two, do you really need to get some of those blood tests? Okay. And your primary care provider is being judged on whether, how much does it cost each provider, each of your patient visits? If you start adding lab work to it, that's an extra cost. We get reports on average cost per utilization per visit. So how much lab work are we going to be offering and giving to this scenario? Are we going to be ordering any X-ray or additional ultrasounds or other studies with that? Again, that's another utilization cost. And then finally, if we don't know what the heck to do with, how can we punt it and pass the buck? A referral. All these numbers are really tracked, and that's really all that is on the menu. This is what's happening in a typical primary care visit when you come in with all these symptoms is 1 or 2 of your symptoms are going to be dealt with in this way. How much time, how much quality, how many deep thought, curiosity do you think that allows for your medical provider as well-meaning, trained, and team you thereon? How much do you think they have time to really think about what are some really interesting, deep questions to ask that can connect all these symptoms? That could connect your heartburn with your anxiety, with your insomnia, with the neuropathy, right? And oh yeah, you're 43 and your hormones, right? No time at all. And this is why we simply don't train primary care providers and conventional regular medical doctors and specialists how to really think about problems in a more sixth sense way. This is the sixth sense that I'm talking about. So what I would love to do is I want to go through some examples of because today I want to identify for you what are some of the questions, why they're asking the wrong questions. Because the questions you're asking is just, do they need a prescription? Do they need a referral? Do they need any of that simple blood work or not? And that's really about it. And what can I punt off? And how? And what can I do to actually make charting later and paperwork as little as possible? Those are the main 5 questions that are actually going through your doctor's mind when you go through these visits, because that's what they're being graded on. That's what they're being graded on. And in some ways, quality measures are really good and really, really important. But what are we measuring quality with? Is it really around patient outcomes, or is it around utilization? How much does it cost each patient to be evaluated by this health system, by this insurer, or by this hospital? So what are some of the real questions that really should be asked? Here's what we're going to get into the meat of. And I want you to start putting in your cases, because I'm going to tell you what questions with my sixth sense should have been asked and what connections are being missed. Now, this is also why I had to develop my own assessment. I had to do so. If you're or anybody is interested in working with us, or for me to solve your problems, any of these health conditions or make these connections, I had to create my own assessment. I created my own 360 health assessment where I get to ask all these questions. And trust me, there's over 100 of them. When have you were ever asked over 100 questions about what was going on with your health condition? And I'll talk about what some of these examples are. So it just to give you a heads up, if you are interested in doing a 360 health assessment, it asks the critical 100 plus questions, 150 plus questions about things I would ask to actually see all these patterns, to actually ignite my sixth sense. So I know exactly what the connections are and how to solve the problem, how to really solve the root causes of these problems. So if you want to link to that assessment, that health assessment, where you answer those questions that I ask, and then we do a one-on-one evaluation and review of a report with all those answers. There's going to be a link in chat, but I will talk more about that later. Okay. But just so you know, if you don't want to hear about the other examples and case studies and things I'm going to bring up, there is a link to do that assessment. Now, that being said, I want to give you guys some examples about, let's talk about one of the key areas, and I think heartburn is a really great example, okay? Because that's a really common symptom. I want to know how many of you out there have gut symptoms, GI symptoms, okay? And that can be heartburn, constipation, diarrhea. I already saw that there was a case, somebody had already talked about their case. Was it Tracy? Yeah. Okay, let's look at Tracy's case. I'm crushed, having chronic, brutal constipation my entire life from childhood trauma. She knows herself that's one of the underlying causes. Great. I love that you have that perspective. You already asked yourself some deeper questions as to why you have that problem, right? I'm on two different medications to make me go and seriously painful cramping before and after taking those medications. Okay, this is a really great example. And I want to point out in this example is that typically, and Tracy can write even in chat, what are some of the only questions her doctors have asked? We are trained as doctors to ask what are called PQRST questions. What it is really like, what is the quality? What is like, meaning like, how long has this been? What is the actual quality, quantity of this nature of this problem? What have you tried and not tried that hasn't worked? And that's mostly what these PQRST questions are about. And probably less than 1 minute is going to be spent on those questions before a prescription, blood work, x ray study, or referral will be made. Okay. Now, when I see Tracy, here's what I think about. There's a whole list of questions around the connection between the gut and the immune system in her body. How many providers have you worked with that really thinks about your gut, your immune system? The immune system is there to actually defend your body from infection. Your immune system, when it's functioning properly, is also going to identify some healthy, a small amount of allergens you might have and friend or foe identification. When your immune system isn't working right, it can turn against you and cause autoimmune disease where your immune system is attacking your body, right? There is a whole connection. When we think about our immune system, did you know that 80% of your immune system lives in your gut, let's say, right? Your gut cells. And so your gut is a huge part of your immune system, right? So it'd be really interesting. I'm just going to say something right here in Tracy's case. Some of the questions that I have some at least 5 critical questions right now. Number one is going to be, how old is she now, for example? And at what age did this started? And throughout her entire life, I bet you there's a pattern here that could be linked with certain times when she had big hormone changes. And that's a really critical question, series of questions to ask. And it could be it is really important because what I know is this is that the gut and hormone times when your hormones are really changing are is a big connection. It's a big pattern I see. That's my sixth sense around this, right? And does she have chronic brutal constipation her entire life? And that's really the one and main. Is that really the chief complaint? Or is that a symptom of a bigger problem? Okay. Is that a symptom of a bigger problem? Because if I was seeing someone that was constipated, that's the end result. That's the end of the line of every step in digestion, right? So here's another list of questions I would be asking would be like, why are we looking at the end of the line problem that she's had her and focusing on that with our typical clinical 5 questions versus a lot of other questions? I'd be sitting here and I'd be thinking, okay, if I'm thinking about end of the line constipation as a symptom, what's happening all the line before this? Meaning like there has to be other issues that led up or are connected with this because this is an end of the line problem, right? So is this the front of the line, middle of the line, or an end of the line problem? How many people have had the doctor talk about their gut symptoms in this way, in this kind of pattern recognition, right? When we have constipation, which is an end of the line problem, it's a victim of previous steps in digestion that isn't happening properly. I can tell you that right now. It is never just about the constipation. I'd be sitting here asking questions around what is her previous history of heartburn, irritable bowel? When she was younger, were there problems even as a baby with colic? Does she have problems with eczema and allergies? Does she have problems with heartburn earlier in life? Was she prescribed medications for her gut? Has she had issues with gut allergies, food allergies, right? Or reactions to food? Is there any connection that she notices of food with previous gut related, digestion related symptoms? And is there a relationship with food now? Because you betcha there is. That's another sixth sense. There's a total connection with food, digestion, and your gut immune function, with which this is an incredible clue. This is an incredible clue. This isn't just about Tracy's brutal constipation. Okay. And whoa, oh, and then I don't know if she added other information to this. Maybe she did. But this is really good right here. Now, I want to go down a whole other line of questioning because if you're going into the doctor and talking about chronic constipation, do you think that there's any connection or thought around the questions they should be asking, which is this? Okay. What age is she? Right. And this is really important. And I'm going to give you an example why. If Tracy answers and she says her age is 47, that's gonna be really important because that's the whole sixth sense holy grail right there, okay? Because I'm gonna tell you something. If a 47-year-old woman is not pooping every day, her hormone levels and the toxic hormone breakdown levels are gonna be building up, building up, building up, building up, building up, because that's the main way which your body clears hormone breakdown products and hormones you don't need. So I can already tell you right now, if Tracy were to tell me the list of her other symptoms, okay, a lot of them are going to be linked with toxic hormone buildup in her body problems, because this is no longer just about constipation. I'm already thinking, what's overall causing a crash in her health? Is it her hormones? I already know. If she's a 47-year-old female who's constipated, there's a whole hell lot of hormone chaos going on here. And our doctor's asking, I'm going to give you some of the list, the hormone questions that I would ask. And I want to ask you guys if you've ever been asked these questions, right? So for her, like even in Tracy's history, if she was coming in and doing a 360 evaluation with me, okay, with our team, I would be asking questions like, how old are you? Having periods or no periods? What's your period history? Have you had a hysterectomy? Did you have a history of PCOS, history of acne, trouble with your weight, hair loss, right? Sleeping problems. Were you diagnosed or having symptoms of severe brain fog? And were you diagnosed as an adult with ADD or ADHD when you've never had it before? Are you experiencing anxiety or depression that you have never experienced before, or irritability over the last couple of years? And even looking at constipation, you said you've had it your whole life, but has there been a change in the last couple of years of your life? That's going to be really mission critical, because that's going to tell me a whole heck of a lot, because there's a huge hormone piece to this problem. And there's no one, I'm going to tell you right now, no one's going to look at this case history with this presentation and be like, Tracy, you've got a serious problem with hormonal chaos that needs to be addressed. And that needs to be addressed first or second or third. I'm even going to give you the order. Does this make sense? I would love to see, is this making sense? This is utilizing sixth sense and really looking at, why some of these things are really happening, right? Will says, I've had 4 years of severe pain in my legs, hands, feet since COVID. They tell me nothing is wrong on x-ray and blood tests. Yeah, that's going to be, I haven't gotten into, if someone can remove that comment, that'd be really great. Whoa, okay, Tracy had a follow-up comment. Even spent 1 week in the hospital, 3 to 4 times enemas, meds, food, didn't even achieve 50% evacuation. It goes on and on. She's at 55 years old. Okay, so that's really mission critical. Between the age of, let's say, for me, 38 and 58, that is the most hormonally vulnerable time when hormones are going nuts. And then you throw constipation on top of this. This is what I call I talked about this last week, but Tracy is presenting as a classic example of what I call the trapdoor syndrome in hormones. This is my sixth sense, and here's a pattern that they totally missed. You guys want to see it? I talked about it last week, and I'm going to show it again because Tracy is a great example of this. So remember, imagine this is the bathtub, and that's where your hormones are. There's a faucet, which is your body makes hormones. Your liver makes hormones, and it fills your body with a certain level of hormones right here. And then your liver and your large intestinal bacteria breaks down hormones, break down, and drains it out. Ouch. And think about in Tracy's example where, let's say she only has a bowel movement once a week, and this is being addressed as a constipation problem, and she's really struggling with that. And what's going on is she says she's currently age, I think 54 or something like that. But what's going on here is her hormones are going through dramatic change between the age of, let's say, what did we say, 38 to 58, perimenopausal changes, right? And that means that some hormones are being overproduced, some are being underproduced. There's a lot of fluctuation in these hormones. And what happens is that if you're making these hormones, but she ain't breaking it down and getting it out every single day, her levels of hormones are building up and up and up and up to this is toxic hormone levels. And this is what I call trapdoor syndrome. And that's a pattern that I see over and over again in about 80% of the people I work with, whether it's man, woman, or child, has a problem like this, like trapdoor syndrome, where no one's even thinking about what's going on with their hormone production, what's going on with the breakdown of their hormones, and what's going on in their body with their hormones, with toxic breakdown products from hormone metabolism that isn't getting drained out. And so it causes tremendous rise in toxic hormone effects in the body, which can include severe brain fog. And we didn't even talk, I mean, Tracy didn't put down the other health issues she has, but this is a tremendous time where maybe not Tracy, or maybe I'm pegging her, but this is when people around that age group having trapdoor syndrome will develop tons of these things like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, autoimmune disease like rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimotos, weight gain, right? So I just want to point out that just from that history alone that Tracy gave me, and just from me asking right now, I think I asked about 20 questions right here. I would have figured out, and I'm going to just, what I love when I do a 360, when we do a 360 evaluation in there is I like to think through, and I think, let's say Tracy did a 360 evaluation. I asked 150 plus questions, right? I like to think about a paradigm with which, what are some of the categories? What are some of the categories that I see that are patterns that they don't see with my sixth sense that I can identify like that, right? Because when you ask better quality questions like this, it's an assessment. That's why I call it 360 assessment. I think about, and we just did several report reviews with people today that I had looked over, and think about some of these categories they don't think about. When we think about up in this category, immune function or autoimmune, how many times do you go in a doctor's office and think they're thinking about that pattern, right? What about inflammation, right? A lot of chronic pain, neuropathy. Do you think doctors are really sitting here thinking about, why is this person inflamed? How is this person inflamed? How is that inflammation scored? And what's the underlying cause of that inflammation, right? I have another category here, okay? Nervous system dysregulation. I'm going to actually bring that up, Will's case, okay? Nervous system dysregulation. There are other categories that I'll talk about in a second, but I find that whether I'm dealing with neurologists, cardiologists, long haul clinics, doctors, or functional medicine doctors or naturopaths, one category, one hidden pattern and line of questioning that don't get asked is, does this person have a nervous system dysregulation? Nervous system dysregulation. How many of you guys think that there's something wrong with your nervous system? And your nervous system is, think about this, is your brain is a big part of your nervous system. Your brain has nerves that are called the autonomic nervous system, connected with the brain, right? And that's connected to what's called the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is fight or flight, and parasympathetic is rest and digest. And they're working in this way in your body to regulate. How many people think that your fight or flight is chronically going nutso and creating a nervous system dysregulation? And in Tracy's case, she's talking about constipation, right? And she said from years and decades of childhood trauma, what she tells me there is there's decades of sympathetic fight or flight nervous system overstimulation that's causing a total nervous system dysregulation, sympathetic, parasympathetic. If your sympathetic fight or flight is really high, it suppresses your parasympathetic nervous system, right? And then there's also peripheral nerves that goes out the hands, your feet, your taste, and that's where pain and neuropathy can come in. These are, when we look at this, This describes a whole pattern that is called nervous system dysregulation, which I love. I love with my sixth sense to identify because it is a treatable, solvable problem. How many of you think you have nervous system disorders? And I want to just blow your mind with. You may not even think what you have is a nervous system disorder. Lynn Lasley wrote long haul, tremors, neurological issues. Such a good example, Lynn. Thank you. Fatigue, weakness, breathlessness, severe depression, anxiety, and losing too much weight. All of these are connected to a nervous system dysregulation. So I will tell you, long haul, just so you know, it's not just a regular old viral infection. That particular virus loves to infect your nervous system. And it doesn't just impact your nervous system, it loves to impact and your gut cells that has to do with digestion, and it loves to attack your hormone making cells. That's a pattern I've seen, I identify, and I treat, fix, right? With people I work with all the time. But only if you see this pattern here. Lynn, this is a classic treatable pattern. But have your doctors ask the right questions, Lynn? And has anyone asked the questions that I've asked and just told you what the problem was? That's the reason why the quality of your health is dictated by the quality of the questions you are being asked. Has anyone asked these questions? And if they haven't, they can't fix it, right? You go to a cardiologist, they're not asking these questions. The question they're only answering is it cardiac or not cardiac? This is not a cardiac problem. But people like this are being sent to the cardiologist that they think is solving this problem. But the only question the cardiologist is designed to answer is this a cardiac problem or not? Usually, 99.99% of the time, it's not. And then they say, I can't help you. That's the question that's only being asked at a cardiologist's office. So this is a great example, Lynn, of a neurological disorder. And I'm going to put also in the family of long haul, it's people with POTS, dysautonomia. And POTS is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, where with positional changes, there's heart rate changes, blood pressure changes. So it must be cardiac. It ain't. So all of these are neurological conditions with which there's a huge connection with the gut and huge connection with hormones and huge connection even with having long haul in. So incredible. That's a great line of questioning, right? And so I wanted to show you by that example, just a whole line of questioning that's completely being missed. And Lynn, I would love some feedback from you as to what your experience was like with months or years of dealing with this. And have they asked these questions? And if they haven't, consider absolutely doing a 360 health assessment with me where I get to ask you these 150 plus questions, right? And thank you. Would be wonderful. No, they haven't asked these questions. I know they haven't because if anybody sat here and really asked these questions, it would lead to solutions, right? It would be leading the person who's going to be asking you these questions are basically leading you to solutions because it's identifying these fixable patterns. Okay. Hormones are fixable. Digestion is fixable. Food allergies are fixable. These nutrient deficiencies, weight issues are reversible, fixable problems. Autoimmune issues are fixable issues. You don't have to be just a victim of an immune system that's dysregulated. In nervous system disorders, you don't have to have a nervous system that's dysregulated. And meanwhile, you're just chasing the constipation. When are we going to stop doing that and identify? Thinking about this, like I meant to finish this board. I mentioned that some of the sixth sense patterns that I think about is immune function, autoimmune, inflammation, right? Nervous system dysregulation. I'm just going to fill in the blank with these two other ones. The other really critical areas to really think about is digestion and food allergies, which is linked to histamine issues. This is a whole category right here. Have you had a constipation evaluation where they even asked about food digestion issues, food sensitivities or allergies, or histamine related issues? Really? Right? Think about that. And then down here is a whole section on hormone dysregulation, hormone imbalance or dysregulation. And when I'm asking questions around hormones, think about this. Hormones isn't just your sex hormones. It isn't just about the estrogen, the progesterone, testosterone, sex hormones. Are they asking questions about adrenal hormones? The adrenal organ, which regular doctors are not trained to evaluate adequately, is responsible, and it's a huge part of our nervous system. The whole sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system balance, the hormones that play in there are from your adrenal glands. So you don't have an adrenal problem. You don't need your adrenals tested. You don't need to be asked questions around your adrenals. That is doing a huge disservice to your chronic health symptom. And then what about thyroid? Do you know that 95% of the people I work with have a hidden thyroid problem, and they've been told that they don't have a thyroid problem? No questions asked around it, inadequate testing, inadequate understanding, right? So I'm just letting you know, like, even just in that hormonal chaos bucket of the sixth sense pattern that I see, this is, I just mentioned some of the hormones, with the sex hormones, the adrenal hormones, and the thyroid hormones. There's hormones that regulate your blood sugar. There's brain hormones, right? So hormones is a big topic with which people have got to ask these questions. Meaning, like, if you're suddenly 47 and you have anxiety and irritability for worse than ever for the first time in your life, is it because you have a psychiatric diagnosis of anxiety? That's what we put on our little chart so you can get that prescribed Prozac. Or is it because, why is it happening at 47? And brain hormones are hormones. Why is it happening to this man at 47 when he never had this problem before? And I saw someone had mentioned a T question in there. In men, it's like the questions around T is one of those things. I don't want to get striked on YouTube. The questions around T are so minimal, so presumptive, assumptive, and blaming and judgment oriented. And that being said, that's not usually the problem. That's a victim of other problems. That's an end of the line problem versus middle of the line or front of the line problem. So Logan said right here, mine is hypothyroid, liver enzymes are really high. Doctor says is hyperthyroidism. And I'm a 36-year-old female. What I love about Logan's question, and I'm going to tell you something really interesting, is that a lot of times with the thyroid problem, right? People just think it's thyroid, the gland right here, and that's it, right? Did you guys even know, and I'm going to go down this way, whether it's hyper or hypothyroidism, what percentage of thyroid disorders are actually linked with autoimmunity, meaning that it's actually an immune system problem where your immune system looks at your thyroid cell, says it's a germ, and I'm going to kill you. What percentage, based on scientific research and data, are thyroid disorders autoimmune related? If you guys can type that in chat, that'd be really great. I know a ton of you have worked with me and have worked with us and know what the answer is. While you guys are answering that, Viara has a question here, and she says, "How can we book a virtual appointment with you and our team?" Vera, you do a 360 health assessment. So we want to talk to you, having asked you all these questions. So we want you to take the time to answer those questions. I love asking these questions, and those answers are going to yield report. We're going to actually, when we talk with you and meet with you virtually one-on-one with the 360 health assessment, we're going to go over this report and actually identify scoring numbers around exactly what the real problems really are, what my sixth sense hidden patterns really are. And then how do you solve it, right? You can't solve a problem you can't identify. It reminds me of The Sound of Music. How do you solve the problem like Maria, right? Well, how do you solve a problem like these chronic health issues? You gotta to be asking these questions, these critical questions of a 360 health assessment. So VR, the best way to do that is to book a 360 health assessment with our team to do that. Oh, Tammy, already feeling better 3 weeks into your program when no one else could help me. You are the best, Dr. Yu. Thank you, Tammy. And you know what? I would love you to share in just 3 weeks what got better. I really love real people with real results. Here's the thing is, how do you get results in 3 weeks, right? What are those results, Tammy? Type it in chat. If you're willing to share with everyone, that'd be great. Because I think the quickest way to solve a problem is to know what the problem is, number one, right? And number two, know what's causing that problem. And then number three, be working with an expert to know how to fix that problem. Okay. fix that really real problem. So I would love, Tammy, as an example, if you can answer what has already gotten better in a 3-week time frame. So I can show through your case study how the right questions can really solve a problem faster, right? And permanently too. We had a pain and neuropathy workshop. Wait, it's POTS? Okay, hold on. Damn. This is the time when if Tammy was, if I could pull Tammy on with me, I would be asking her a million questions right in front of you. How many of you would I'm just curious, how many of you would want a live thing where I would be asking Tammy just over in 3 weeks, what questions did I ask? What did data reveal that caused her to have her POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, not to have a single flare in 3 weeks? Because POTS is considered absolutely untreatable. Okay, untreatable out there. We're talking vertigo, dizziness, tinnitus, even ringing in the ears, heart rate that goes super fast, super slow, blood pressure, high, low. People cannot drive. People are debilitated on disability from POTS, right? I have a lot of trainings that I've done around POTS. So that is just such a huge example here of somebody with a neurological nervous system dysregulation, where when you are asking the right questions, you identify what the real problems are. Within a 3-week time frame, she hasn't had a single flare. That's the kind of results that happens when you have a sixth sense to know what the right questions to ask is. And you actually, with people's results, pinpoint with data, do an analysis to say, what is the real problem? What is your score? And I love the other thing that I love to do when I do a 360 health assessment, when we do that, we also know exactly what is the order of operations, meaning what should be the focus. Right? Just because, let's say, I need to work on digestion and I need to work on hormones, or I need to work on my thyroid. Well, what's first, second, or third? Or what should be done together to actually get me the best outcome, right? So I love being a tactician. I love being a strategic tactician. I know the strategies, so then the tactics get super easy. We know exactly what order to do things in. Now, Susanna asked the question, which is, do I work with 20 or 20-year-old males on nervous system? Susanna, yes, and hell yes. I work with everybody with nervous system dysregulation from babies to 99. So example, I actually work with a ton of families with autism and autism spectrum disorder. And that's a nervous system dysregulation that's linked to digestion, linked to hormones, linked to the immune system, linked to genetics. So I work with everyone with these disorders because everyone has these underlying root cause questions that nobody's asking. Now, 20-year-old, whether you're a male or female, to me, especially with nervous system disorders, is an epidemic currently. It's a huge epidemic. And that's a whole sixth sense and a hidden pattern that I want you to start seeing, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. This is the sixth sense. Start to notice that nervous system disorders like POTS, dysautonomia, and long haul is hitting. There's two age groups that it really hits. There's a group with the teens and young adults, which is the 15 to 25 crowd. And there's a group is the 35 to 55 crowd. Two groups. And there are some things that these two groups have in common. Okay. The pattern I see is both groups are in huge hormonal change times in their lives. Okay. I want you to know that, giving the example of a 20-year-old male, is that males, young males between the age of 12 and 22, is at a time when their hormones are really trying to rev up. There's a huge demand to actually make hormones. And even if you think about male testosterone, the male testosterone level is it's 10 to 20 times the amount that a female makes. So their hormonal systems are really working really hard on that particular branches of that hormone to make that hormone. So if you think about it, that is in a man's lifetime, a time where their hormonal change is a lot. So this is when I see young males come down with POTS, central nervous stuff, ADD types things, autoimmune disorders like Sjogren's, like Crohn's, ulcerative colitis. One of the best interviews and one of the best cases, and I have so many of males that I've worked with, is Tyler. And I don't know how many of you guys remember Tyler. I mean, we've been doing this for 10 years, near 10 years at this point. Tyler was one of our earliest interviews from, I think, 2018 or 2019, where he, from his late teens to early 20s, had Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. It was either Crohn's or it was Crohn's, not ulcerative colitis. And he also had multiple other autoimmune disorders. And I believe he had ankylosing spondylitis. Tyler or Tyler's mom, if you're on this or watching this later, you could update everybody. Or if you guys want to see Tyler's interview or even his follow-up interview, type it in chat. So and Tyler was on his deathbed, literally, because when I back then I did the call with him and his family, and it was on Zoom, and he wasn't even on the first part of the question, the assessment, because he was on the toilet. And when he came back, he was laying like pale, like probably about 50 pounds underweight. He was told that his only choice for his Crohn's and his autoimmune disorder was to get on Humira and to get some surgery of some sort that to remove large parts of his colon. And he was told that the likelihood he would die from that surgery or post-surgery would be high anyways. And I was just like, whoa, 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 hold on. Okay, let's ask all these questions. And in doing the assessment, I was able to identify, in his case, huge, huge, huge issues with his immune system that was linked to poor digestion, poor hormone problems, with severe blood sugar hormone problems. His blood sugars were like this. He was like pancake waffles man, right? So it was really cool. We took him from deathbed to 6 weeks later on Zoom while we were working with him. He was sitting here working out with his weights. He really enjoyed doing that. And I recently had the pleasure of following up with him. This is 7 years since he was working with me originally. And I don't know if any of you saw, there's some YouTube shorts where he was talking about where he is today. No symptoms, remission, weight, hormones. And he was joking in his interview. This is the 7 year later interview, that when I first saw his hormones, I asked all these questions about hormones, and I already told Natalie, his mom, and him that your hormones are, based on the questions I already asked, I was going to be like, that's going to be a holy grail. And it's going to be unleashed, just 10, 20, 30 tools that they've had no idea around. And Tyler jokes about this on the interview, where he says that when we actually reviewed his hormones and show what the pattern was, he had the hormones of an 8-year-old. That was the age of his son at that time. And he was like, I had hormones less than my son's hormones. I love Tyler, and that's a really great story, where the sixth sense, utilizing my sixth sense and asking those questions within a matter of 6 to 8 weeks, he went from deathbed to pumping iron, and 7 years later even was in complete remission from multiple autoimmune disorders and central nervous system disorders, right? We're talking ankylosing spondylitis, Crohn's. I know there were a bunch of others that I missed here, Tyler. So if you or your mom is watching and want to plug in that, anybody wanted to see his story, type in chat Tyler's story. Or if you guys want me to do a re-interview, gosh, bless his heart, he's such a proponent for good health. He's developed like a whole fitness program now around like healthy eating that's based around hormones, autoimmune, digestion. It's really cool. If you guys want me to interview Tyler to just show you where my sixth sense and doing a 360 health assessment to go over and ask all these questions revealed the answer and the pathway to the answers and solutions, type Tyler interview. Maybe there's 100 of you that wants a Tyler re-interview. Maybe we'll do it, and maybe I'll do it live. Who wants a live interview with Tyler on that? That'd be great. Do you do testing? Anna asks, yes, and heck yes. I am a medical doctor. I am a scientist. I don't feel your woo-woo. I love the questions. I love data. I love science, and I love medicine. And I love also natural, marrying that with natural solutions to these problems. So all of it all of it. Okay. And really importantly, testing is really mission critical, but it's the right testing and it's the right understanding of these test results that's really important. So, yes, we do. And Anna mentioned really quickly uncontrolled diarrhea for years, can't find the cause. We can identify that cause within a matter of weeks, Anna. On top of a long list of medical conditions and diagnosis, but no root cause. Years of visiting different doctors, no answers. Anna, do a 360 health assessment. Let me ask those 150 questions and let us review one-on-one those results with you, because there is already, I already know 3 causes already, in this case, but, even without, because I can see a pattern here already. Anyway, sixth sense activated, spidey sense activated, sixth sense activated. 360 health assessment, that'd be really great. Here is, I was inconclusive in my tilt table test for POTS, so they said there's nothing they can do for me. My heart tests are normal. Really common scenario, in people with central nervous system disorder, POTS or dysautonomia. And really, remember going to the cardiologist or the neurologist to get the tilt table test. All you're doing is really, they're just asking, interestingly, is the only question they're here to answer is, do you qualify technically for a diagnosis of POTS? So I can circle that in your chart so I get reimbursed, so I get paid on this visit. And then it also helps with the sorting algorithm so I can see who I can punt you to next when I say I can't help you. Okay. And typically, when a cardiologist and neurologist diagnose POTS, we're talking about compression stockings, eat more salt, 1 or 2 heart medications for a non-heart problem that makes most people worse. And so, yeah, typical, not the right questions asked, right? Scenario here, for Kate, right? And then I wanted to go back to this case right here with Will's case. I've had 4 years of severe pain in my legs, hands, feet since COVID. They tell me nothing is wrong on x-ray and blood tests. You know, actually, well, I'm just going to let you know, I see cases like this probably by the hundreds. This just even this month, in the month of October, we've probably had about at least 150 people reach out with a very common scenario like this. And it is totally a pattern that's missed. How many people have had chronic pain or neuropathy? How many people have chronic pain and neuropathy? And that's what I just did a live workshop around. Now, in this particular Will's thing, I'm going to say this, okay? There are some questions that are not being asked. Did he have COVID? Did he have long haul? Was this associated timing-wise with getting jabbed, right? How old was he when this started? Does he have a history of digestion issues, gut-related issues, food allergies, right? And right, so these, and I'm going to be asking other questions. How does he sleep? Right? Does he have trouble falling asleep, staying asleep, or does he wake up feeling not refreshed? How long has this been happening? Does this run in his family? Right? These are the kind of questions, just a bunch of questions that I would be asking, let's say, on a 360 health assessment. That's already going to tell me, number one, if they do an x-ray or an MRI on him, nothing's going to be wrong. This isn't a functional x-ray or MRI where there's going to be, oh, there's a nerve problem here that I identify. That's the problem. That's the question that's being asked when he gets those studies done. And when the answer to that really simply is no, that's not the problem. He doesn't have a pinched nerve, let's say. Then he's just going to be like, there's nothing we can do. I'm going to ask, will this question is going to be like, if he's been dealing with this 4 years and he's still having those symptoms, he already himself has made a connection with COVID, right? So I'm going to already, just by my line of questioning and the fact that he's made the connection, I'm going to tell you this, very few doctors on the planet has made the connection or asked the question around COVID around, or any sort of other infection around this, because they don't connect this pain with having neuropathy, or that there is a super infectious agent as a triggering of the immune system that's causing this problem, right? And then Will's age is going to be really important, because I will bet you that there's an age component as to why the last 4 years this was so much worse. Because I'm assuming Will's male. If Will's male, there is going to be some questions that are going to be really relevant around, is there a history? I'm going to just say it seems out of left field, but I would be asking questions like any history of ADD, any history of depression or anxiety at a younger age. Why? Because those questions are relevant to me because it assesses his hormone status. Is there a hormonal component to this? So those are some of the questions that I would be sure as heck asking Will if I was doing his 360 health assessment. And so this is why I had to develop my own assessment because doctors are not asking these questions. They're not thinking about it in this way. So this is a really great question. Let's see, we have a zero right here as well. I don't take my test T and everything is off. I don't eat. The more energy I have, I don't even need to sleep. So there's a lot of fluctuation in energy. It's just the random sweats, freezing currently, the white blushes on my body. A lot going on here. So immediately when you guys look at this, this would be what I would call a primary care visit where you're going to have a provider that's going to be rolling their eyes or trying to punt this person off as quickly as possible. Because the longer you talk to a Zir, the more symptoms are going to show up. And this is such a freaking pattern. I can't even help myself with my sixth sense. I would be like, let me have at you with the 360 health assessment. Let me ask those 150 questions because I'll be telling you right now, the fact that he's taking the T means that there's been some evaluation and some hormone problems to begin with. But I'm going to tell you right now, and that's going to be this. Why the heck at what age did this start with that hormone problem? And what was the real problem causing that T problem? What was the real cause of that problem? In traditional medicine, if I guess a dude is lucky enough to get that question asked and get that answer that's low, then they'll get that prescribed that. That is not the solution. Just like in constipation, that's an endpoint problem. That's the end of the line problem. Having low T is an end of the line problem, whether it's male or female. And so there's a whole heck of a lot of other things that should have been evaluated and problem fixed. So he wouldn't have even needed to take that in the first place because that's not a solution. You take an end of the line problem and you give a prescriptive or even a green medicine that's an end of the line treatment. What about all these other issues that are still occurring that brought him there, right? Because there's a nervous system dysregulation issue here. There's an immune system problem here. There's a digestion problem here. And there is a food problem here. Totally going on here. So the more questions you ask a Zir in this assessment, you're going to start seeing like connections with family genetics, with his childhood history, right? Somebody like this might have said, I had recurrent strep throat as a child, and I took like 10 rounds of antibiotics every single year. And I was like the ADD kid that was bouncing off the wall all over the place. It's totally connected. But why aren't we asking these questions to connect these dots? Does that make sense, everybody? So those would be in Azir's case, thank you for sharing, that I would be asking, right? And here's another thing. KT says, my IBS started at age 12. I was diagnosed with PCOS at 14. Oh my gosh, totally connected. Thank you so much. I love this case. So you're saying these things might be connected. There's no might, KT. How about 100% certainty you can take that to the bank? 100% take it to the bank, okay? And also asthma my whole life, connected. 100%, right? The asthma is part of her immune system. That's the allergy branch of her immune system, right? And PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, is a hormone branch of this. That's another, look at this. Like in KT's case, let's look at this, okay? We're talking about just some of these categories that I think about. Lighting up like a Christmas tree would be, she says she has IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, since the age of 12. When we go through the questions, we're going to be really evaluating this from a digestion standpoint, food allergy standpoint, histamine standpoint. How many people looks at IBS and says, I'm evaluating digestion, food sensitivities or food-related reactions, and histamines? Nobody, right? So again, that's just even one part of that story right there from 2 lines. PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. This block in her, I wish I had a red marker right now, with the hormones, we already know at the age of 14, which is a time a big hormone shift, is already huge. And if you go back and look at family history, start thinking about looking at her mom's history, looking at her grandma's history, looking at if she has siblings history. And then when she has children, her children's history, it's going to be lighting up like a Christmas tree that there's tons of hormonal footprints and questions that should be asked in her mom's history and her grandma's history and her auntie's history that were completely missed and never asked that are solutions. Because, and then here's more, right? Then what about, remember I mentioned there were blood sugar hormones? I didn't even write that down here. Blood sugar hormones down here in the hormone section. And I didn't even mention nervous system or anything yet. And I bet you she has anxiety or ADD. Okay. So there's central nervous component here. So 100% they're connected. So I love being able to, when I ask these questions, be able to actually attach scores, percentages, charts to what's going on. So you can see, utilize my sixth sense to see what's really going on. And that's how I would solve these problems, is problem identification by asking all the right questions, over 150 of those questions, in fact. So Katie, this is a completely solvable problem. And I love that. And I hope, and I don't know what age you are currently. I love the fact that if I could identify these problems in someone who's 20 years old versus identifying someone who's 40 or 60 or 80, the earlier someone asks these questions to identify the connections and the patterns that are there, the easier the problem is to solve, the quicker the problem is to solve, and the cheaper the problem is solved, and the more valuable that outcome is, because you're affecting the outcome for the rest of that person's life. So the earlier and sooner you do an assessment and understand the connections and how to fix these problems, the bigger the opportunity is. That's my point here. So I love that. There you go. Perfect. So what I want to share today is I love activating my sixth sense to identify the questions that they're not asking. They're asking the wrong questions to really go through the menu of items to sort you through in a clinical setting. So what I love to do is whenever I work with somebody, whenever somebody comes with me with a easy or difficult or seemingly unsolvable medical problem, is I'm going to say, let's ask the right questions, the real questions that really connects the dots. And that would be what is called a 360 health assessment. We're going to have a link here for those of you who want some. I think Viara was asking how do you get in touch with our team? How do you do this assessment? How do you get my sixth sense on your problem? Is to do the 360 assessment. And there's a link there for you to do that. And then Lori Z says, doctors have been trying to figure out my issues since my early 20s and now 58. Yeah. And I love the fact that we're intervening at 58, Lori. I really do. I love the fact that I'd rather intervene at 58 than 68, because the opportunity is so much bigger at 58, right, than at 68 or 78 or 98. And we just yesterday enrolled, have someone working with us who is 77, because the rest of her life matters. The quality. She worked this hard to get to retirement just to be what? Written off for dead, written off to pasture? Nope. Not her. 77 years old. And she said, I'm going to fix my problem over the next couple weeks and couple months. And I said, you sure will. You sure will. Because I already know exactly what the problem is. 77-year-old walking around with a fixable problem that have been told is unsolvable. In her case, POTS, neuropathy. Okay? Neuropathy. There you go. So, okay, I hope so those are some great examples. I'm really excited that we got a chance to share this today. And what I would do is, for all of you, I want to know that are still watching right now, what is one big takeaway that you have? What's one question that I've asked that you're like, nobody's ever asked? What's one question that I asked nobody has ever asked? I know there were hundreds, right? And what did that wake up in you as a likely connection and solution to your health problem that nobody has ever thought of, right? The quality of your health is going to be determined by the quality of the questions you let me ask. There you go. So what questions did I ask that already has raised the bar to the quality of your health and your health outcomes? Type it in chat. I would love to know. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to keep putting it in. I personally look at every single one of these comments and questions over the next 24, 48 hours. And if you know somebody that you can share this with, it may not be you that needs help, but if you know somebody that needs help, go ahead and share this with them right now, or put their name there so that they get tagged in this. I would say that my big ask is for sharing is caring. So if there's one person that you can share with, that'd be great. And the other thing too is help me spread this message. On YouTube, I'm at 49,000, I think 49,100 subscribers to the channel. Bring me over to 50,000 by subscribing to the YouTube channel. We'll even provide the link to the YouTube channel where you can subscribe, or just look under Maggie UMD and go to my channel and hit subscribe. Because at the 50,000 mark, the algorithm changes. At the 50,000 mark, at the $100,000 subscriber mark, how YouTube actually shows this to people who need to see it completely changes. So you can subscribe to my channel right now. We'll provide the link right now, and also ring the bell on it so then you get notified every time I'm live, so you don't miss a beat. That'd be great. I love these lives. A lot of people who are creating content are not doing it live. And I love creating live content because it means I get to play with you and play full out with you in chat in real time. Some people think these are pre-recorded until they see me respond to their comment like this. Viara says, can you post a link to your YouTube channel? Heck yes, right now. I would love if people can post the link in chat to my YouTube channel. But even easier, Viara, just go to YouTube and put in Maggie UMD. And it will show you my channel and click subscribe. That's even a better way to get to my channel because it tells YouTube that you're interested in my content and my channel. So there, the link is being posted right now. And you can always just go to YouTube and search Maggie UMD. And yeah, and remember I mentioned Tyler's interview, Tyler. Search Maggie UMD and Tyler, Tyler, and you'll see his interviews show up. Search Maggie UMD and Neuropathy, right? And some people had questions on, how do you deal with the long haul? How do you deal with POTS? How do you deal with hormones? How do you deal with thyroid? Search my name, Maggie UMD, with that particular symptom. We're almost at 2,000 videos that I've created and content, most of which are live, that I've created over the last 10 years since I started that YouTube channel. So you can search my name with any topic, any symptom. You are going to see my hot take, my 6 cents on it. So that is a wrap. Thank you so much. And what I want to do is, it's fall, it's pumpkin spice season, apple cinnamon season, and it is the season to fall in love. Fall in love with turning around your health. Fall in love with yourself. And so as an homage to falling in love with ourselves and falling in love with fall, ask better questions. That's one advice that I have for you, is the quality of your life is going to be dictated with the quality of the questions you ask. If you don't know what to ask, let me ask it. And I would love to see, me and my team would love to see so many of you on 360 Health Assessment, so we get to ask these questions. So that's my takeaway, everybody. Have a wonderful night. Thanks. Bye.